Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! It was a windy day at the city-run tennis facility where I worked as a cashier and tennis instructor. The guests were relentless, blowing at speeds ranging from 50 to 60 miles per hour. The phone had been ringing off the hook as player after player cancelled their reservations, deciding that tennis in such conditions wasn't worth the hassle. I couldn't blame them. Even the most dedicated tennis enthusiasts would find it challenging to play in this weather. As luck would have it, there was one group of older women who had insisted on playing, come hell or high winds. They were regulars at our facility, and I had learned over time that they had a knack for finding something to complain about every time they stepped onto our courts. Whether it was the stained tiles in the restrooms, the speed of our Wi-Fi, or the noisy kids at the daycare next door, they never missed an opportunity to demand that we fix something we had no direct control over. Yesterday, though, they found a new target for their complaints: the needles that had been blown onto the tennis courts from a nearby pine tree. As the guests relentlessly carried these needles onto the courts, the women stormed up to the front desk. "Excuse me," one of them huffed, "is covered in needles. We can't possibly play under these conditions." I nodded sympathetically, though inside, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. I say, "I understand your concerns, ladies. I'll take care of it right away. Give me a few minutes to grab a broom." I fetched a push broom from the supply closet and returned to the court, where the women were still grumbling amongst themselves. I gave them the typical safety talk about playing in adverse conditions and assured them that I'd do my best to clear the court of the pesky needles. Sweeping the court took about 10 minutes, and I thought I had done a decent job. However, the relentless wind gusts had other plans. By the time I had finished, a thin layer of needles had already blown back onto the court. The women noticed this, and their dissatisfaction resurfaced. "You call this clean?" one of them exclaimed, pointing to the scattered needles. "We don't feel safe playing on a court like this." I sighed inwardly but put a pleasant smile. "I apologize for that, ma'am. The wind is making it challenging to keep the court completely clean. But I'll sweep it again for you, and this time, I'll be extra thorough." With that, I began sweeping the court once more, making sure to pay extra attention to the areas where the needles seemed to accumulate the most. However, it was like a never-ending battle. The wind showed no mercy, blowing more needles onto the court just as I had cleared them away. After another 10 minutes of sweeping, the women approached me once more, their patience wearing thin. "This is ridiculous. You're clearly incapable of doing your job properly. Just let us play." I couldn't help but smile sweetly and say, "I understand your concern, but you did say you didn't feel safe playing with these court conditions. I can't, in good conscience, allow you to return to play until I've cleared your court completely." The women exchanged frustrated looks, realizing that their request had backfired. They retreated to a bench and muttered to themselves while I continued to sweep diligently. Every time the wind deposited more needles on the court, I made a big show of sweeping them up. Minutes turned into what felt like hours, and the women grew visibly more agitated. They whispered amongst themselves, likely realizing that their request had led to an unintended standstill. Finally, one of them, the apparent leader of the group, approached me with a sigh of resignation. "Fine. The court is good enough now. He'll play." I shook my head apologetically. "I'm sorry, ma'am. You said you didn't feel safe playing with these court conditions. I can't let you return to play until I've cleared your court completely." The women exchanged bewildered looks, and I could see the frustration building. They had walked right into this trap, and they knew it. With a collective sigh, they gave up. Without saying a word, they gathered their tennis bags and walked out of the facility, defeated by their own entitled demands. As the door closed behind them, I couldn't feel but chuckle to myself. It was a small victory, but a satisfying one. I knew they would be back, though, finding something else to complain about. But for now, the tennis courts were needle-free, and I could finally enjoy some peace and quiet in the midst of the howling wind. One of my first posts on here was about a Karen demanding to get out of my power wheelchair to let her son have a go. I freaked out saying no. I'd only had one other encounter with her since that happened, which I hoped would have been my last. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Megatron the Karen strikes again. I'm a quadriplegic, and although I have use of my upper body, I still rely on my power wheelchair to get around town. I recently received a new power wheelchair and I'm still getting used to using it. Although it looks slightly different than my old one, it still attracts Karen. This happened a few days ago when I was downtown doing some shopping. As I was leaving the mall, I saw Karen and her 12-year-old son walking in. I wanted to turn and go the other way, but she'd already seen me. In hindsight, I should have stayed in the mall and waited for her to lose sight of me, but at that moment, I just wanted to get as far away from her as possible. So, I exited the mall, hoping that Karen wouldn't follow me. But I wouldn't be telling this story if that were the end of it. There is a discount clothing shop just outside the mall which I plan to go to, so that's where I went. I was in there for a few minutes when I got the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned to see Karen and her son near the entrance, glaring at me. When I looked at her, she immediately looked away, pretending that she was shopping. I headed to the plus-size section, hoping that she'd lose sight of me, but in retrospect, that was a bad idea. I called her Megatron Karen for a reason. When I got to the plus-size section, I naively thought I was safe. But oh no, the raiders. It had only just begun. I started looking through the selection on the racks when, not long after, I got that same feeling that I was being watched. I looked around and saw Karen at the end of the aisle. She was looking at me, but when she saw me looking at her, she looked away. Then came a strange game of cat and mouse. I went to another aisle and she followed me. I went back the other way and she followed me. To avoid causing a scene, I left the store hoping to outrun her. Unfortunately, I was not that lucky. As I left the store and was going down the block, I got that same feeling as before. So, I turned around. And wouldn't you know it, there she was. "What the hell is wrong with you, lady? Why are you following me?" I asked. "Excuse me, I'm not following you," she replied. "Okay then." And I started going in the opposite direction to call her bluff. And guess what? That lunatic followed me. I could hear her coming up close behind me, so I stopped short, causing her to run straight into the back of my wheelchair. The sounds that followed were very satisfying as she hit her knee hard into the bar at the back of my chair, and her belly directly into a hook near the top where a headset can be placed. She almost fell in an attempt to correct her balance. "What's wrong with you? You could have killed me!" I exclaimed. "That wouldn't have happened if you weren't following me. Now what do you want?" After muttering incoherent slurs and expressing anger and pain from getting hit by the back of my chair, she said, "You insolent little… Get out of that wheelchair now before I call the cops on you for assault." "Really, lady? How about you take a look above your head?" Did to the CCTV camera directly outside the store that I stopped in front of. That will show you following me, as well as the one inside this store we were in before and the mall you followed me out of. I dare you. Please, Karen, call the police. I dare you. Karen suddenly fell silent. Better yet, how about I call the police to press charges on you for harassment throughout this entire encounter? Her son was trailing behind her, his tail between his legs, with a look of embarrassment and shame on his face for what his mother was doing. So far, Karen was still keeping her mouth shut. I took out my phone to take a picture of her face. This picture is time-stamped with my location. If I ever see you again, you will leave me the heck alone. Or I will show this to the police, who will be more than happy to review the cameras. I warned Karen, and she just stared at me like a deer caught in headlights, with her mouth doing a brilliant goldfish impression. Then I left it to continue my shopping. Thankfully, I haven't seen her since then, but I hope she took my threat seriously. I didn't want to take things further because that will probably get DOX involved, Australia's version of CPS. But if anything else happens, I will be sure to post it. Today I'm coming to you with a story that's been gnawing at me for a while. And I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. So here goes nothing. I'm a 26-year-old woman happily married to my 24-year-old husband. We decided to attend the basket raffle at our local library over the weekend. It's an annual event where local businesses and organizations donate baskets to raise funds for the library. The crew included my sister, 33, her two sons, Bracken, 13 male, and Neville, 11 male, Braxton's girlfriend, 13 male, and my sister's husband, 33 male. Now, Bracken is a sports fanatic, and he's always had a blast trying his luck at this raffle. It was all about those sports-related baskets, and he's had some success with them in the past. My husband and I were casually browsing the baskets when Bracken and his girlfriend joined us. We continued to explore the goodies on display. We stumbled upon a section with science-themed baskets. This was Neville's jam. The problem though was that they had a few baskets explicitly marketed as for girls in science/STEM. Neville took one look and started making some pretty awful comments, saying girls were too dumb for science and that's why they needed special baskets. He even went on to say, "This is why robotics club is all boys." My husband and I tried to brush it off, but we couldn't help but notice the disapproving glances from all those around us. Bracken even told Neville to shut his mouth. The raffle came and went, and it turned out that Bracken was a big winner, while the rest of us left empty-handed. On the way home, my husband and I were puzzled over where Neville had picked up that language, but we couldn't come up with an answer. Fast forward to last night and I received a call from my stressed-out sister. She launched into a tearful tale about how Neville's first months of middle school had been a nightmare. She told me he was being bullied and targeted, but when I asked for specifics, she just couldn't get the words out. So I asked her to pass the phone to someone else. Enter Bracken. Bracken spilled the beans, revealing that my sister wasn't exactly being truthful. He admitted to sharing the whole raffle incident with his friends, who then spread the story among the 6th graders. Neville's classmates were now calling him creepy and weird. Even his friends were getting a taste of the backlash for defending his comments. My sister wrestled the phone away from Bracken as she cried. Once she regained her composure, she asked me what to do. My response? That's where things got hairy. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that this situation was on her, and I mean, she hadn't corrected Neville's behavior, and that was the root of the problem. She seemed hesitant to take any action, saying she couldn't just take away his phone or forbid him from seeing his friends. She insisted that she needed to teach Bracken and his friends not to gossip. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her she was being utterly ridiculous and hung up. She tried calling me back, but I refused to pick up. And that's when the angry texts started pouring in. So Reddit, am I the jerk here? And now some comments on the post. Everybody's a jerk, except Bracken. We have an 11-year-old falling into the misogynistic sexist rabbit hole. Poor parenting. No one, including you, your husband and his mom, did say anything. Instead, all of you ignored his comment. I applaud Bracken for at least telling him to shut up. Bracken, not gonna lie, is the only one who made sure Neville knew what he said was wrong. Even if it caused bullying, I bet Neville knows what he said was wrong now because of Bracken. I just see it as a bully learning his lesson. You're not wrong, though your sister should have put some sense in her kid's head. But at the same time, you ignored what Neville said. Sure, she's a parent, but he needs to know everyone disapproves of his situation, which includes you. Another commenter says, no, not the jerk. What your sister is doing is pushing the responsibility of Neville's words onto other people, like Bracken, instead of keeping Neville accountable for them. This is step 1 of enabling his behavior. Each time he's allowed to get away with it, he will feel emboldened to do it again and get worse each time. Ask me how I know. Actually, please don't ask. The person I know is almost 70, so it's a never-ending long story. A third commenter goes with, everybody's a jerk. You should have called out his comments immediately. Why would you just blow them off? You just allowed your nephew to act like a little jerk as to by doing nothing. And your sister is a jerk for blaming her other son for this reaction. The only good person in this story is Bracken. Do better. Last summer, I found myself in a situation I will never forget. It was a scorching hot day in Australia with temperatures soaring to a blistering 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit. I had just arrived at the local shopping center ready to do some grocery shopping when something caught my eye that would turn an ordinary day into an extraordinary one. As I made my way through the parking lot, a standard-looking sedan immediately drew my attention. However, it wasn't the car itself that grabbed my gaze. It was the two children sitting in the back seat. One of them, a young boy, had a blood nose that was gushing out, and he looked as if he had been severely beaten. My heart raced as I knew I had to act quickly. Without hesitation, I reached for my phone and dialed 000, which is Australia's equivalent of 911. I explained the dire situation to the emergency operator by saying, "I need the police. There are two children in a car, and one of them is bleeding badly. I think they are in danger." The operator's response shocked me. They hesitated and then told me that breaking the car window would be considered damage to property. It was as if they didn't fully grasp the gravity of the situation due to my panicked explanation. I couldn't stand there and wait while those poor kids were in distress. "I don't care about property damage," I replied, already unbuttoning my shirt to protect my hand. "I am breaking the window. The longer I wait, the greater the risk to these children's lives." Finally, it seemed like the operator understood the urgency, informed me that the ambulance had been dispatched and that the police were on their way. I hung up and turned my attention back to the car. The children looked terrified, and the one with a bleeding nose appeared to be in tremendous pain. "Kids," I called out to them, "try to close your eyes and shield yourselves in any way you can. Help is on the way." I then took a deep breath and without any further hesitation, smashed the car window with my fist. My actions had attracted a small crowd of concerned onlookers, but I paid them little attention. I opened the car doors and a kind-hearted couple rushed to my side to help me get the distressed children out of the sweltering car and into the cool air conditioning of the shopping center. Within what felt like an eternity but was probably just a few minutes, the police arrived. Shortly after, a woman who I later learned was the mother of the children rushed to the window. She discovered her two severely dehydrated and unconscious children in the arms of the Good Samaritans. Furious and seemingly oblivious to her own negligence, she began to swear loudly and demand to know who had harmed her precious babies. My patience, worn thin by the events unfolding before me, couldn't hold back. "You did, you dumb," I started to say but caught myself. I decided to take the high road, realizing that arguing with her would only escalate the situation. I put my shirt back on and stepped away, allowing the police to take control of the situation. The police officer, who happened to be a father of two girls himself, wasn't about to let the entitled mother off the hook. He sternly informed her that it was her negligence that had put her children's lives in grave danger. He tore into her with a verbal reprimand that would ensure she never forgot this incident. I stood there quietly watching as justice was served, and the children were taken to receive medical attention. The relief in the air was palpable, while I had been half-heartedly warned not to break windows again. It was clear that the police unofficially appreciated my quick actions to save those children's lives. In the days that followed, I couldn't help but reflect on the incident. It was a stark reminder of the dangers of leaving children in hot vehicles. No matter how busy life gets, it's crucial to prioritize the safety and well-being of our little ones. I hope that this harrowing experience would serve as a lesson not just to the entitled mother, but to all the parents and caregivers. So to anyone reading this, I implore you, stop leaving your children in hot vehicles. The consequences can be catastrophic, and it's our responsibility as adults to protect the most vulnerable members of our society.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories.
Thank you for watching and see you next time.